I now recognize Mr. Takano from California for 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, we're having trouble with it, as you know, the technology here. Great. It is abundantly clear that the Biden administration inherited an economy in dire straits. As Republicans vocalize falsehoods about what has put the American economy back on track, the policies Democrats pursued speak for themselves, even despite the unique challenges global inflation has presented. As we discuss policies Democrats can pursue to help, it is imperative that we look at ways in which we can still improve. The Fair Labor Standards Act established an overtime compensation requirements for certain employees when they worked more than 40 hours, and the Labor Secretary has the authority to create the parameters relating to the white-collar exemption, meaning that certain professional employees are not eligible. This week, I will be introducing the Restoring Our Overtime Pay Act with Representative Adams and Senator Brown. The bill seeks to codify an enhanced overtime salary threshold at a historic high of the 55th percentile of earnings of full-time salaried workers nationwide. This threshold would be at least $82,732 by 2026. Overtime standards are long overdue for a meaningful update, and it is high time our country pursued powerful protections for workers, especially in the wake of COVID-19. So, Dr. Schierholz, would you agree that the current overtime standards are overdue to be updated?
Yes, I would. And I thank you for that question, and I'm really happy to answer it, but I want to take 1 second to just correct something that was stated earlier. The PRO Act would not destroy the independent contractor model. Anyone who is a bona fide independent contractor would not be affected. Those who are misclassified as independent contractors, the thing that they would be able to do is those who would be impacted are those who are misclassified who want to be able to organize. That's what it does. It's not a wholesale redo. Okay, sorry for that diversion. So yes, we absolutely need to increase the overtime threshold. Right now, the overtime threshold is at $35,568 a year. So basically, anyone who makes over $36,000 can be asked to work 60, 70 hours without getting any additional pay. It's really like the idea that somebody who makes $36,000 a year has enough bargaining power with respect to their employer that they don't need the protections to keep them from being exploited from overwork is absolutely, it's just, I think everyone in this room would agree that that's not the case.
Yeah, it's my recollection that in the 70s, the overtime pay threshold was at a level that included 70% of the salaried workforce. Is that right?
Yeah, it was, our calculations put it at just like 63% of the full-time salaried workers earned below the threshold. In other words, it was high enough that it covered nearly 2/3 of full-time salaried workers.
Now, so it's 2/3, yes, not 70%.
You got it.
But what is that percentage now of salaried workers today?
I think, okay, I can make sure to check this for you for the record, but I think it's around 15%. It's a huge drop.
We go from nearly 2/3 of the American workforce being covered by overtime pay. They were eligible for overtime pay. In fact, they had a right to it, but that right has diminished from the 70s of 2/3 to 15%. That's an incredible figure. You know, from 1938, I understand that a trucker who's paid $38,000 a day, which is lower, I mean, I admit trucking salaries have gone up, but they would not be able to earn overtime pay. Is that correct?
If they are,
They're exempt.
They're exempt. They're really open to misclassification. So you're supposed to still get overtime protections if you earn $38,000 if you are, if you are not like a bona fide manager or sort of highly paid professional. But there's a ton of misclassification. They're extremely vulnerable to being exploited by overwork.
So if a trucker goes on an interstate highway, they're exempt from overtime pay protections. Is that right?
They likely wouldn't pass the duties test, you're supposed to be a bona fide manager where you get overtime even if you are paid over the threshold, but that is violated all the time, which is one of the reasons we really need to raise the threshold in order to make sure that people have the protections.
Well, I think with the shortage of truckers in this country, I'm all for the training and improving that industry, but I think it's high time that we stop exempting truckers from the FLSA. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Takano.